Welcome back. So we in this lesson we're going to be looking at the best practices when we're naming our widget, because when we start to build our prototype and we start to make some animation and interactions and some styling, we want to actually know what widget we're working on, because if you have too many widgets and you don't name them, or you don't name them properly, then you won't understand which of the widgets you're working with at a particular time, and it might be very difficult for you to kind of understand it and make changes later on in the future, or when somebody take over that prototype. So it's always good to name your widget. I always recommend that, because if you don't name it, it's just going to be too much. And remember, when Action generates the HTML file and the CSS and JavaScript and everything, this naming convention is going to be very, very good for anybody trying to do some advanced stuff as well with actual code. So it's always good for you to name your widget. It's very, very important. The first time we created this splash screen, and we never named this splash screen, which is not good. So we're going to name this splash screen, which is very important. Now it's a rectangle widget that we've given the size of our mobile app, which is 360 by 640, which you can see here. The W means the width and the height means the H means the height. So what we do is we name this widget, and we highlight the widget, and we say splash underscore container. Now, when you are developing your prototype, I want you to imagine like you're developing a real app. So naming this widget splash underscore container makes you look like a developer, but although you are not writing code, you are not developing this, in HTML and CSS. But if someone looks at the generated HTML and CSS file, then they will understand that this person has some knowledge about development and naming convention. So we've named that, and we press enter. So anytime we select it, we know that this is the splash screen, and it's there, and we can see it here on the page outline as well. So we have the splash screen, which is the page, and we have the widget on the page, which is the container, which is splash container. Now, another naming convention that I would say is that we've used this for it. So mainly what we're going to be using this box widget for will be things like container or a holder, but I prefer to use the word container as opposed to holder. So when you're naming image as well, we need to be using something like img, so that what we have here, we have img, we can say img person, so we are saying this is an image of a person or something like that. So but always make sure that we name it as underscore img, so that the user know, or you could say person underscore img. If you want to do it the reverse way, it is fine as well. The next one we're going to look at, and also when we want to use an image, we should use this image, because sometimes we might be tempted to use a widget and then convert this widget to image and then start to import the image here. It's not really a good practice. So let's use the image widget. If we know we're going to be using any image in our prototype, we use image widget, not another widget and converting it to image. The placeholder as well will be good for something like if we want to have like a logo, or maybe a placeholder to say this is a product. So it's always good to have it here as well. And when we are naming it, we make sure we indicate that it's a placeholder. So we can say, maybe if we use this for banner, for example, we can say banner placeholder underscore banner, or banner underscore placeholder, or we could just say banner, or we can say banner underscore img, because there is an image that we're going to. So it depends on your naming convention that you use, maybe within your company as well. And also when we need a button, in Agile 8 we have we have this button here, we have this primary button, and we have this link button. Now if we want to make a link a button, then we can use this and we can just change the name of the link. Instead of using an heading and then we're converting it to to a link, it's always good for us to use that link button if we know the button will be clickable, and we can use some of this button as well. Don't be tempted to use this as a button. It's not a good practice as well. What we use is we can use this, and when we are naming it, we can say submit underscore btn. So we know that this is a button and we can change the name. To change the name on the button, we just need to double click and change it like this. Don't be tempted to cancel everything and then drag another widget above this. It's really unnecessary. So you can add your text to the widget if you want as well. Another thing I've seen that people do, if we need a paragraph page, we can have something like this, and we don't do this. We don't put this paragraph here and then place it inside here. It doesn't really look good as well. We can put the paragraph directly inside here by double clicking everything, and we can style this to make it, or we can simply just use this as a paragraph. Also, when we are naming, we make sure that this is a paragraph as well that we are using. We give the text a name and then we say underscore paragraph, so we know that it's a paragraph as well. So here we can say the heading h1, we say as well what we are naming this label. This is going to be a label, so if we say first name, we'll say underscore LBL, so that we know that this is a label, so that when the user know, they know this is a label, and they know which is a button, and they know which is a link. So we try to make sure that we name our widget properly in terms of the names and the types of words we use for them. This is a dynamic panel. What I've seen a lot of people do as well is, if they want to create a dynamic panel, they end up converting this to dynamic panel. If only it's the only option we need, then we can do that. But we can also use a dynamic panel as well. And when we are naming a dynamic panel, let's always add dp at the end of it. So we could say home underscore dp. So we know that this is a dynamic panel, and we can always work on that because we've named it as home dynamic panel. Another thing as well, again, about the text box, we're going to be using the text box as well. We give the text box name, and we say first name underscore txt, which is text. For text area, we use the same thing as txt. For drop down, we use as maybe cmd, which is like combo box, or we can say a drop list as well, just like that. And the list goes on and on. And throughout this course, we will be using this naming convention. We will be using these best practices, because if we don't name our widget, let's assume I just drop things here, I just drop here, I just drop here, and I want to make an interaction, right? If I go to on page load and I say on page load and I want to make an interaction and I say show, for example, now I don't know what this is all about unless I have to put my mouse over a widget to show this is a text box. But if we have two text boxes and we did not name this first name and last name, we're not going to know which is a text box and which is not. So we just know that this is rectangle. We don't know what they are. We don't know if it's a button or not. So it's going to be very difficult for you to understand your your prototype when you have so many widgets. So in the next series, in the next video, we're going to be looking at other aspects of ActualRP in our introduction to ActualRP prototyping journey. So we're going to be working on that as well. So I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.